Excuse me, everyone. Excuse me, everyone. Sorry. Excuse me. All right. It is 7:30 at Hollywood School. This is a special board meeting of District 96. Margie, can you call the roll?
Yes. Mr. Barsati? Present. Mr. Hunt?
Here.
Ms. Kleiber? Mr. Marhold? Here. Mr. Miller? Mr. Muirhead? Ms. Murphy? Here. Thank you.
All right. Well, on behalf of the Board of Education, I would like to take a moment to welcome you tonight and thank you for your time and consideration regarding the upcoming presentation and discussion about Hollywood School and the HCA. I'd also like to take a moment to thank the Facilities Advisory Committee, DLA Architects, and many others who have invested much of their time and effort to address the concerns of not only Hollywood School and HCA, but all of the schools in District 96. So there's a couple programming notes here. First off, you may notice in the agenda there are two opportunities for public comment. This is, since we will have an interactive meeting tonight, you'll be afforded an opportunity to ask questions and express yourself during the discussion phase of the meeting. Certainly, if you feel compelled to make a public comment or statement before the group discussion begins, you're welcome to do so. There will be a summation from each group at the conclusion of group discussion time. And once we reach the opportunity for the second public comment on the agenda, should you wish to speak, please feel free to do so. And I think we said we're putting additional forms on the table for that? Yeah, okay. So you should have the opportunity to sign up for that. Let's see, I'd like to conclude that I know that all of you are anxious to begin with our group discussions. So once again, thank you for your willingness to participate in the meeting. Let's see, and also I think we have a microphone that will be passing around. They'd asked me to mention that. So at this time, are there any public comments? All right. And then at this time, I'd like to introduce Superintendent Martha Ryan Toy, who will present information and plans for ideas for Hollywood School.
All right. Thank you. So Dan Hunt is our Board of Education President. I want to thank Dan, and I also want to thank our entire Board of Education, 6 members that are here tonight. I know you heard them say here or present during the time that we did our roll call, but actually if you would each just one by one take a minute and stand up and introduce yourselves. So this is really an idea that the Board of Education felt very strongly about, really having an opportunity to hear from the community about what is a challenging question in front of us in regard to some of our facility improvements. And I'm going to be giving an overview of all that so that you all have some history and some context and information that you need for the discussion tonight. But before we do that, David, I'm looking at you. Would you mind standing up and making the first introduction?
I'm David Barsati. On the board.
Hi, I'm Sherry Kleiber. Hi, everybody. I'm Linda Murphy.
Joel Marhold.
And I'm
All right. Thank you very much to the Board of Education, again, for sort of creating this opportunity. I also want to thank some of our District 96 people that are here. So Kim Hefner is our principal here at Hollywood School, so thanks to Kim for joining us. Jim Fitton is our Director of Finance and Operations, sitting in the back there. Jason Smith is our Instructional Technology Coordinator and also has a lot to do with our presentation materials, so thank you, Jason. Bill Howes, our music teacher, who snuck in here as a community-interested district person. Kim Eddy, our advanced learning teacher, also, and I think Marissa's also here, right? So anyway, thanks to all of you for joining us tonight on this kind of bleary, dreary night, too. I know hard to get out and be part of this conversation, but really want to thank you for that. So, and also, I know there are many of you from HCA that are here. Thanks. I don't know if there are people from the village of Brookfield here or not. There was some thought that we'd have some Brookfield Village people also joining us. Village people, I know that sounds. Anyway. I also want to acknowledge that it's kind of a momentous year for us to be having this conversation. This is the 90th anniversary year for Hollywood School. That's a really big deal, and tonight our conversation is very much about the future of Hollywood School and making some improvements here that we have been giving a lot of time and thought to. So what I want to share with you tonight is an overview, as I said, giving you a context of really what brought us to this conversation here tonight. So we have had a long-range facilities plan. We have been sort of in the midst of very active planning for the past couple of years. And we've really established some goals around parity and equity and things that we really wanted all schools to have. And I'm going to share those with you tonight because it gets to sort of how this then starts to impact what's going on outside of Hollywood School. So one of our goals is to have a secured front office for each of our elementary schools. Secured front offices have kind of a certain standard of care right here in the 2019 school year, sadly, just because of the many things we know that go on in schools. But the idea is that when you walk into a school, we want you to be welcomed but also locked in until you prove who you are and why you are here. So that is one of our facility goals, is to better secure the front office here at Hollywood School. The other thing is to account for what we call all existing itinerants or student support areas. So what that means in our schools, and many of you know this and some of you perhaps don't, is that often we think about our general education classrooms, and what we also need to think about obviously are our psychologists, social workers, speech and language pathologists, special education teachers, reading specialists, math specialists, advanced learning teachers, the EL teachers that help children that are acquiring English as their an additional language. So because Hollywood has really grown and changed, as of all educational facilities in that way over the years, we have some of our support staff people existing, working in areas that we feel are not really ideal. For example, I know our psychologists and our occupational therapists sometimes work up on that stage, right? So that is one of our goals, is to make sure that everybody has the space they need to serve children well. So we know we need to do some renovation and some expansion in that area. We also, our goal is to build a multi-purpose room for lunch and large group learning activities. This gym functions as the lunchroom right now, and also functions as that opportunity for large group learning. But we would like to have an additional space really dedicated to lunch and then dedicated to some of those large group opportunities where we want to bring a couple grade levels together for an activity, more of those Hollywood community activities, which we know there are a lot of great things that happen at Hollywood School in that way. The other goal is to separate play and parking. And this is one that you're going to hear a little bit about, and you're going to give us some additional input and thoughts. Because right now, for those of you that are familiar with how the area works, is our children play in our parking lot, and then they play on the playground area too, which is right next to the parking lot. I always feel like I need to qualify that by saying we have a lot of rules for our staff in that area, that we feel like we create a safe enough environment for our kids. Staff do not move. If you know you're going to leave at lunchtime, you don't park in the parking lot. So when kids are out there playing, cars are not moving. But we also think it's really not ideal for how we want children to be able to play and explore. So that is one of our key goals here, is to separate play and parking. This is just a quick overview of the concept floor plan. So that orange area shows the multi-purpose room, which would be an addition onto the school. The yellow areas are actually renovations. So what you see is a flip-flop of moving the front office to what is now a classroom, taking the office and creating those small group learning spaces for students. So again, I talked about that already. That is one of our key goals, is to secure the front office, to have those additional areas for small group or student support areas, and then to build on that multi-purpose room. And there you see a drawing of the multi-purpose room, is the one that starts to then increase the footprint, change the footprint of Hollywood School. And the way it's designed right now is that it starts to come out onto our current parking lot, which is also our play area. And that starts to impact decisions on what we need to do next to improve that space. Multi-purpose room is just a very rough drawing. We actually looked at improved drawings today, much more beautiful. But the idea of multi-purpose room being a place to eat lunch, and we believe also likely a place we're going to teach music class and have other large group learning opportunities. So this is a rendering of the possible multi-purpose room. I actually think it looks beautiful. You can see, again, think back to this slide 2 slides ago in terms of how it comes out into the parking lot, but really also an area that just is, I think, really inviting and creates a great opportunity for our students. This is just the same multi-purpose room design idea from a different angle. But again, you see how it comes out, it comes out onto the parking lot. just another inside view of how it might look. And then again, this is these were pictures that were taken just this week in terms of our goal of separating play and parking. And I don't want to make light of it because it's significant. I think our kids, this is what they know, right? It's what they do. They know how to do it safely. Our staff know how to manage this safely. But when you really look at all the things that are going on, I think we pointed out there's a little baseball game. I think there's a little kickball game. I think there's a football game going on. And you can see how everybody's just kind of on top of each other, right? It definitely, we think that there's definitely an opportunity, and not to mention that they're between all the parked cars. So our goal in separating play and parking, as I mentioned, is really about student safety. It's also about making sure that we have an adequate number of parking spaces for our Hollywood staff. And we think that that's about 20 spaces. We've been counting that many different ways. There's Hollywood, because of the size of the school, we have a lot of part-time staff members that come and go from Hollywood, but we think 20 would solve for us and address our needs. We also, is very much our goal, this has been a conversation going on, I know, since I've been here, since 2016, and it was going on before I got here, is we really do want to improve and update the playground and play space for children. So, but we've been saying all along, we're not ready to invest in new equipment until we know for sure what the footprint is and what the dimension should be for the space. So this is really our challenge that we're putting before all of you tonight, that this is really the community challenge, is how do we effectively separate play and parking, and I will add, and build that addition at Hollywood School. So we have some options that we want to explore and discuss. And I actually feel like right now is really probably the right moment for me also to say that the idea, we are not talking about tearing down the Hollywood house. That I've already been chatting with a few people tonight saying, I'm here to tell you I don't want you to tear down the house. It is not our goal to tear down the house. And I think that's really important that that isn't really the conversation here tonight. It's really, and I'm going to explain all this, it's really about continuing to work with the HCA and formalizing a lease agreement. And there's a formal lease proposal that the HCA has put forward to the school district. It's been made very public. It's been shared in the newspaper. I know it's been shared with HCA. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that. But I want people to understand what that is and what that isn't. There's just an aerial overview of where Hollywood School fits in a really tight area in this whole kind of Hollywood community, right? We have Riverside Brookfield High School right here. We have the zoo. And I always feel like Hollywood School, I think I called it a postage stamp when I first arrived here, because it just feels like it's kind of wedged in between all this other stuff and just great things going on at the school. And we want this to be just a wonderful experience for all of our students that are here. But I think that picture gives you a good idea of just how very kind of I don't want to say trapped in, but maybe I'll say trapped in, Kim, in terms of how the space works. So the Hollywood Citizens Association, I know many of you perhaps tonight are from the HCA, has sent us a letter of intent offering for $1 a year, a really fair price, the land located west of Hollywood School. So I'm going to show some pictures here. I know it's not a good night to look out the window and see, but it's really just outside the window here. For some of you, if people who've been following our story really closely, at one point we thought we might be talking with the HCA about the property on the east side of the house. The HCA has come forward with an offer to lease us the property on the west side of the house. So that's this area here. I guess I have a pointer, Jason, don't I? But anyway. And it's great green grassy area. It would include also the current playground area where we could improve that space. I will point out one sort of immediate concern we have is that it's on a corner, right? So we know that we would need to talk about fencing the property. We've had some preliminary conversations with the village about fencing the property. We think that's something that the village would allow us to do. Typically the village does not allow that kind of thing, that fences in what might be considered the front yard of residential properties in the Hollywood area is not common. So that's a special consideration from the village in that area. So again, this just gives you a different view of that area. Again, great place to play. I think there's some wonderful play options. Because we're also then building, that's the current playground, where we've had a lot of conversations about the playground does need to be updated. And that's very much in our goal once we figure out if that's the right place for the playground to be. So in terms of the work that would need to be done to make this lease a viable option for us, as we mentioned, that we do believe we would need to fence an area to just keep kids from darting out in the street, keep balls from rolling out in the street, and kids running out there to retrieve them. And kids get excited during recess time, and they're not always thinking, and they're young. So that would be very important to us. The other thing is if we were to accept the lease on this west side of the property and keep the playground roughly where it is, that means the playground would be kind of roughly where it is, and the parking lot would basically be where it is right now. But by building the addition, we would lose some spaces. The other thing that, lose some parking spaces. The other thing we've learned is that Hollywood staff, love them as I do not park where the stripes are in their parking lot. So they pile a bunch of cars up into one little area, and so they don't park the way they are supposed to park. So once we would make the improvements, we would stripe it appropriately, and people would follow the stripes of the parking lot. So in doing that, we would actually lose some parking spaces. Again, we've had some preliminary conversations with the Village of Brookfield about allowing teachers to street park. We think by the number of spaces we would lose, that if we got 6 or 8 spots roughly from the village, the teachers could park out front here. It would be labeled as some kind of, teacher parking only from 7:30 to 4:30, or we'd have to figure out those exact hours. That would help us. So that's one way that I believe this is a workable solution for us. The other solution, the other idea that we have talked about, and I want to bring that up here tonight because this is really the conversation, this is the input we, again, want from all of you, is that there is land located at what we call Hollywood and Rockefeller, and I'm going to try to point this out. If you look up where that yellow arrow is, this is land that is currently owned by the Village of Brookfield. And 2 years ago, I think, Kim, you and I went to the village and said, we're trying to separate play and parking. Can you help us? And I thought maybe I was asking for a whole lot of street parking. I mean, we really had no specific request in that. We just said, can you help us? At the time, there was an interim village consultant who was essentially in the director-manager position, and they brought this up to our attention. So this isn't something that we went out seeking or noticed. This is something that was brought to our attention by the Village of Brookfield. And it's up in that area. I call it the zoo access gate. It's actually village-owned property. The zoo owns the property on one side, and the village owns the property on the other side. There it is in that's actually that's not recent, right? Because the leaves are off the tree. But you can see how this presents an option for us. We would become responsible for clearing the trees, addressing probably some stormwater. We believe there's some utility issues that would need to be addressed. We have not formally analyzed the cost that would be involved in doing this because we weren't sure how realistic of an option it is. It's still a question mark for us, but it's an entirely different option than what I just talked about in terms of the HCA option. It allows us to get our cars entirely off the parking lot, and we would make the parking lot play space. So it's, again, sort of creates a different configuration, still allows us to do our addition. Our teachers, there it is. This is a current photo. This was, I think, just this week. So you can see that's the area we'd have to clear. It would probably be angled or perpendicular parking straight in at the fence there. And we believe it would get to us to our close to, or maybe the number we need, which we talked about is 20. If not, we still believe the village would work with us around those maybe 6 or 8 spots in front of the school.
But the village did agree to it.
The village has not formally agreed to it. The village made us an initial offer of consideration. Since then, there's also been turnover at the Village of Brookfield, and so we're not sure that it's an entirely viable solution. So it's kind of a question mark solution. It's an intriguing solution to the district and to the Board of Education, which is why we want to continue to keep it on the table as a consideration. So I already kind of shared with you the scope and the improvements that would need to be done. So that's really the question before all of you tonight, why we really appreciate so many of you being here and why we have very intentionally set you up at these table groups. What we would really like for you is to work with your table group, and hopefully you're kind of sort of parents of children currently at Hollywood, parents of children who've been through Hollywood, longtime Hollywood residents. We just really appreciate the different perspectives that are in the room tonight. So to talk about, at your table, the strengths and weaknesses of the HCA property lease, the strengths and weaknesses of the village possibility, and maybe some other idea that we have not thought of, right? So I guess that's really the charge in front of you tonight as a table group, and Jason has our poster board so that you'll have an opportunity to scribe and write down some of the ideas that you have on your mind. So we're going to give groups about, excuse me, maybe 15 to 20 minutes. We'll kind of listen for the conversation to die down. If we think we need longer, we can go longer. Excuse me. If you're not at a table group, I'd ask you to join the table group. Yes.
Question, how many parking spots are currently in the Hollywood School?
Sorry.
15.
15.
Currently 15.
But we park more than 15 cars in the space.
Yeah, we use outside
And then
every day.
HCA lease, is it all the way out to the street, to the sidewalk?
It includes Hey Gonzo. Didn't say Hey Gonzo. Am I allowed to put you on the spot about the HCA lease? All the way to the street. Lose my voice, so I'm gonna.
So let's see, do we want to use the microphone?
So Gonzo's the HCA president. For people that don't know Gonzo Scheck-Schneider, I'm gonna put him on the spot here. Thank you. Yes.
You need to go back to one of the slides with the overall.
Community member asked something. Oh, hi. Yeah. So the idea is, hi, I'm Gonzo Scheck-Schneider. I'm the president of the Hollywood Citizens Association. Oh, is it not on?
It doesn't go on. It just goes into the.
It's going to the TV.
Oh, it's just for that.
Folks at home.
I'll be here all week. Try the veal. The idea is that the current playground and as much of the land to the west as possible. One of the ideas we've talked about is we feel like the sidewalk, because it cuts in on the land, there could be the possibility of talking to the village about making it run along the edge of the property and extending the playground out a little further. But yeah, the whole point of the west of the land is everything as far as to the street that we can legally lease out. So, any questions about that? I have 21 copies of the proposal if you haven't read it.
My question is real simple. Has the perspective of putting parking in this dead space towards the corner ever been considered? It looks terrible. I understand it looks terrible, but it's not our kids you're looking
We had a
at.
very preliminary conversation with the village, and there are issues about it being a corner, and yes, something. I don't think it's just about appearance. It's actually about access point on there, so it was not viewed as a good solution.
You guys ever gone to Riverside and tried to get the property on the other side of the school where those tennis courts are?
No. So those tennis court, it's also brand new. I don't think there's any interest in undoing what they have done.
But I mean, have you gone there and asked them for some property to lease or something back there? I mean, regardless if the stuff's new or not, they're hardly used.
Yeah. We've had Riverside Brookfield High School has been part of some of our conversations about all this. They've looked at the village, the area up by that zoo access point. They understand that that's something we may do. I think I'm still mic'd here. Probably one of the negatives that I didn't point out about the village property is that our staff would have to navigate through the whole RB parking because there's not a separate access point. It doesn't come off of Hollywood. They'd have to drive through the Riverside Brookfield teacher-student parking area every morning. Yeah.
Linda just said that they're concerned that you're having sidebar conversations with people that should be taken.
So what we're going to do is, I think some of these are great questions. I can probably start to say yes. We've thought about a lot of things. We've been in conversation for several years. But I think these are great conversations to have at your table group, and that way then when you share them out, we can present them to everybody. And if they are presented as just a question, that's fine, but maybe you have something you've thought about as one of those. Is there anything else you've thought of as another possible solution? Jason, do I need your whistle? We always look for the person in the room that can do that. Thank you. So with that, is there any table group that is interested in going first to share your summary of ideas? All right. Here you go. Here's the microphone. This is always a little confusing. It doesn't amplify, but it makes it go onto our video. So.
Camera? Where's the camera?
Right there, smiles.
All right. Well, we'll go in the order. This is so funny because it doesn't amplify my voice at all, and yet. All right. Dear, I'm talking, please. I know. So first we're doing strengths and, thank you. Oh my God, that was so hard.
Can you explain why there's no sound?
Yes, because this is just for the recording purposes. It's not actually amplifying my voice. All right. Strengths. Weaknesses of the HCA property lease. All right, so real quick. We said strengths right here in pink. Both sides working on a solution to the problem. I guess both sides being the HCA and the school. This guy right here with that idea. Awesome. Makes a large play space available because it's a relatively large area. So, you know, that's solid, that's big. Clear separation between parking and play achieved. Done. I'm blocking the weaknesses. Can you all see? You can't see nothing. All right. Limits on weaknesses, limits on option to renew the lease. So we're concerned that right now, sweet deal, it's $1 a year, something like that. But what if the HCA is like money-making scheme that we can like ramp up the price? So we're a little worried about that. First it's $1, then it's $2, then it's $3, and you just don't know where they're going to stop. There you go. 2, limitations being placed on what can be built. Don't limit us. That's a concern. 3, conflicts with events between the school and the Hollywood Place. You know, if they're both doing stuff at the same time and there's spillage between the two factions, something like that. 4, if existing terrain is kept, concerns over how weather will impact limit play. So, okay, so the idea is that right now the parking lot being used is to play. If it rains, whatever, you're still good to go out there, run around, bounce a ball. I would, yeah, hell yeah, yeah. But you know, to each their own. Anyway, but if they haven't changed the grassy knoll area that we now have in this space, then it rains muddy. Then I guess it's bad news bears for everybody. We got one more weakness on the back. Relocating parking spots to Hollywood Avenue, thus reducing parking for parents, visitors. So I think someone said that if we do this idea where we'd use the property over here, the HCA property, and therefore they reduce the parking spots in the existing lot because of the construction, then a few of those parking spots are going to be out here on Hollywood Avenue, and those of us who parked here go somewhere else. Do we keep going with our other poster?
Yeah.
Oh, does somebody else want to talk? My wife is saying someone else should talk. I listen.
All right.
Yeah, there we go. Let's mix it up, mix it up.
Mix it up. Thank you. Okay. Okay, we're going to move on to strengths and weaknesses of the village property purchase or lease. So this is the area at the end of Hollywood that the village might make available to the district for parking. So some strengths of this, it's a new idea, something that really hasn't been talked about here before. Potentially 12 to 20 parking spots could be available for teachers. It is a definite separation of the play area and parking, so something that we really want to see happen. So one of the things I really like about this is that this would really allow the play space to be completely on Hollywood property and really allow a complete separation from HCA. Currently we depend on the HCA for the land where the playground is, but potentially the entire play area could be on the current Hollywood parking lot. That could be split up into, playground and soft surface as well as hard surface play area. And this would completely separate the district and the HCA, which could be a real benefit. And so, yeah, separates insurance liabilities. Currently, the district has to take out insurance because the playground is on HCA land. Something that could be a strength or a weakness, we have it in both columns, is village sentiment. It could be a little volatile, so things could change. And then strength, mostly cleared space. I didn't hear about that one.
There's like a tree. There's not like a jungle, there's not an old gas station, it's pretty cleared land that can be developed.
Okay, you're talking about the village property at the end of Hollywood. Okay, very good. Okay, some weaknesses. We would need to have the right terms for this deal. Not sure what the village would want for that. The village weakness could be, what if the village doesn't approve this at all? Our understanding is that it has not been formally presented to the board, or there hasn't been a formal decision by the board. So that would be a potential issue. For teachers and staff, it does add time to the commute. So depending on your sentiment, that could be a big issue or not an issue at all. As a parent, like, okay, yeah, you have to walk a little farther. But as a teacher, I can understand it's an issue. And in the wintertime, it's dark over there. Yeah, so one of the issues for the HCA with this scenario would be that they would lose on-site parking. So currently they use the Hollywood parking lot for their nighttime events and weekend events. They would lose that parking. So they'd either have to maybe build some spots on the east side of their property, or use the Hollywood staff parking, the new lot. And then a weakness is the cost of land improvements on this new land that we're talking about. We don't really know how much that would cost, and that could be a weakness. All right, so we'll move on to other options.
All right. Okay, so we had quite a few ideas. The first was to potentially build a second floor onto the north side of the building, which I think it was discussed, but if Chicago can be built on the silty, swampy area, I think engineers could probably figure that out. Benefit of that is that the classrooms can move up, the multi-purpose room can be down, so students if there is a potential intruder, if students are on the second floor, it actually protects them a little more. Another idea is, well, in this whole plan, and I know this has been talked about for years, if there could be a plan to include space for, and this is district-wide for all of the schools that are undergoing renovations, to include full-day kindergarten. The paved area, we touched on that a little bit there. If there was a paved area, the multi-purpose room I think looks great, but if we could keep a paved area and have hard surface and soft surface for the whole area, so in those times, because it does get pretty muddy, and the kids can still go outside even if it's wet, and maybe put a basketball court out there. Another idea was to put in possibly some underground parking. Along those lines of thinking, for those of you familiar with Blythe has an auditorium that's underground with the gym above it. If there's something that maybe could be done with this existing area that we're in right now, to be similar to Blythe, and that could help out with multi-purpose room or additional parking. Another idea is rooftop playground. What's the name of that thing in Chicago? The 5-2 something, or that? So it's been done. These like rooftop green spaces, and that might be a possibility. What's that? Prisons have them on the roof. Okay. Well, kids think school's a prison anyway, so why not just go there? There's another thing to consider. For overflow parking, this isn't a solution to all the parking. I think, if we can get that area over there, that would be ideal. But currently, the parking restrictions on the streets around here, I think aren't really necessary. I live on Parkview, and there is no parking during the day, and the street is empty. And most of our neighbors don't need street parking during the day. Everybody has a driveway. The only two people that are affected by that would be your house and my house, where we share a drive. We don't need parking during the day. If we have some zone parking for the teachers, perhaps it's not that far of a walk. My kids walk it every day. So if we can change parking regulations, maybe on Parkview, on Hollywood here, Hollywood south of Washington, maybe along Rockefeller, if there could be zoned parking, again, similar to like the north side of Chicago, everybody has zoned parking. Get some stickers for the teachers and allow them to have some, street parking nearby. There's also the idea of metro parking spaces. There are a ton of parking spaces that are empty at the metro stop, like all day long. And then there is a green space. We don't know who it belongs to, but between Hollywood Motors and the existing parking at the zoo stop, there's this huge green area there that's just on the downward slope on the north side of the tracks. I don't know who owns that, if that can be utilized in some way. Metro. The Metro owns that? Metro?
You plan to get your teachers from the metro parking spaces to school? No matter what the weather.
I walk 1.5 miles from Union Station to my job each way. I mean, yeah, they're young and virile, and they can walk. I mean, right? What's more?
Shuttle? The Hollywood shuttle?
I mean, it's 2 blocks. It's 2 blocks. So those were our ideas. All right. Me? Sure. Sure. What's that?
Your rooftop playground.
Yeah.
Sounds fantastic. Yeah, and you know what else? Okay, wait, after me. What really turned me on is I found out that this new building, if you want to build it, is not going to cost taxpayers a cent. Is that right? Yeah, right. Now, they said they have the money for it. Is that correct?
I am not on the board, so I can't.
So,
I am just a parent and Hollywood citizen.
How wonderful then, you should still have your parking lot, and we could have your parking.
Yeah, I mean, that would separate the plan.
Making it a rooftop. I mean, I think the price differential's fair. I'm just spitballing their ideas. Don't know
When you mentioned underground parking, that would be interesting,
Okay. Right, which, that's why, we thought of, Blythe is also in the floodplain, so, we do have that. Underground auditorium space. Yes.
I'm particularly excited about the notion of having a rooftop because for global warming and all the other things, that would be an incredible educational experience. Think about that. That could be a player. Well, wait a minute. You're talking about the court offered us $250,000 for that lot, right?
Oh, I don't know what it is.
That's what it was offered. So
more than that. Okay. I think so let's do the other options are great, and we're excited to hear these
Kinds of things, because this is brainstorming, right? These are creative ideas that don't necessarily have clear parameters, costs, reality, all those things. But let's move on. I mean, these are great ideas, and thank you. And it's interesting to hear kind of what catches people's attention or their imagination. But I do want to make sure that we hear from all of our table groups without keeping you here into the wee hour. So let's move on to this table group. And you have a spokesperson, and we'll have you take the microphone.
So this is for the HCA property.
Kim, you have to get off the speaker.
I'm sorry? Okay, so the strengths are the HCA lease. There's lots of land at a good price. There's a big play area. We can make it more safe with fencing, and the playground is a great asset.
We did not come up with any negatives.
Oh, okay, we don't have any negatives for that. The zoo access drive, okay, I get what's going on here. Okay, this is everything on one.
Yes.
Okay, so the zoo access drive is not too far to walk. These are the strengths. It's hard to get to by teachers.
Because they have to drive through the RB.
But that's a weakness.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm just taking notes.
Will the village even accept this? Would we have control over the property? And, but it would not be hard to monitor. So those are kind of pros and cons together.
You're doing great.
And then the multi-purpose, that wasn't really,
That was just an addition.
okay, so is that everything? Okay, so that's everything. Thank you. Here you go.
I don't know. All right, who wants to hold it? I can speak if you want to hold it. Can you hold it? All right, so for the HCA property lease, first strengths would be twice the playground space and a better playground we'd get. It would separate parking and play pretty effectively, provides more space. It supports the school board's mission and provides a new playground at no cost to the PTA. And the lease agreements, it's affordable rental. The weakness is it doesn't really fully address the parking need, and is maybe so it's just kind of short term, could create some issues in the long term, depending on. Yeah. Does the lease go up? Does it change? What happens?
Yeah, what are sort of the unknowns of the lease agreement? For the village property, so one of the strengths is like we really saw the potential of putting the parking over there and kind of separating the parking from the play. The weaknesses is the distance, the potential cost to redevelop that area, and just kind of getting the village board approval from the village of Brookfield.
But the village said it's not.
Could I address?
Sure.
I'm Village President Kit Ketchmark. We had some, just back up a little bit to summer of 2018, there was some very general discussion with the school district and the village at that time, our interim village manager regarding that property. Very general, we had our village manager start last fall, Tim Weiberg, who did have discussion with the school about that, who brought the idea to the village board. The village board is not receptive to this idea. You've got a lot of issues to this. It's currently access for the zoo. It's a service entrance for the zoo. There's infrastructure underneath there. Adding 20 more parking spots or 15 more parking spots is the same as adding more parking spots to RB parking lot. We just dealt with that for a year and a half. At the end, we were parsing the number of parking spots that we would allow for that. RB cannot add any more parking spots to that lot without violating their lease with us. So putting 20 more cars that will exit over here was not a viable solution we saw. So we don't see that as being an option, going forward on it. That was last fall. We had that discussion.
That discussion was had last year, regarding parking down the road. Why is it up on the board there for us to talk about as a legitimate option? Right now, just curious in general, kind of asking the board that question. It seems like that was a legitimate what if for everybody. it's a little odd.
I think from the board perspective is there was an initial thought a year ago that this was brought to the board, and because of the difficulty of communicating on official channels, it hadn't been completely ruled out. We had heard that it was difficult, but we did not have the summary that Mr. Kretschmer gave. So we did not have a definitive no on this up to this point.
Last group, we're looking at you.
Apparently we only have one poster.
All right, so we'll do the HCA property lease. Strengths are the Hollywood house stays. Nobody has to tear that down. Because like the other group said, it's a 30-year lease with 2 10-year options after that. So what happens after the first 30 years? Another strength is you don't have to build a new parking lot. At least we thought we wouldn't have to. And another strength is we would get a larger playground than what we have now. Weaknesses, still the uncertainty of the parking. I think David mentioned if we put the addition on, we get about 10 parking spots back there, so we still got to figure out what to do with the other 10 spots needed. And then the other weakness was possible fencing. We'd have to do that. Sidewalk has to get moved, probably, and then what kind of fencing the village would let us put up around the new playground. I think we're going to skip the other one.
Are there any other options? Any of the brainstorming options?
Martha?
Yeah.
Just one thing I forgot to say is that something we talked a lot about is just that, I think maybe these people brought up as well, is the parking in the neighborhood. Some sort of stickers with teacher hours, just give the parking.
Right. And so it's been our understanding that's available to us, likely available to us, I shouldn't say with certainty, on a limited basis. I don't think we would have 20 spots in the neighborhood. That's something we have not gone to the village and asked for, but we've asked for a limited number in the village. So it sounds like that's kind of on that other options to consider list. And that would be a village determination on that. So I know there was a lot of opportunity for group discussion and the group share out, and I really, really appreciate that. I know there are possibly some of you that would still like to give an individual public comment, whether it's an idea that wasn't heard or something else that you just want to make sure that you shared. A lot of you signed in for public comment. We certainly shared with you at the time, like you can waive that if you don't want to do that. But I guess, Dan, this would be an opportunity to ask if anybody else wants to give individual public comment.
Yes. I was going to ask that. So we do have some folks who signed up earlier. I think we had sign-up sheets at the tables. Do we have anyone else signed up there? So I'm sorry, one second. So I guess one thing, since we have a lot of names here, if we could try to limit our remarks to 5 minutes, and also if there are a group of folks who have basically the same thing to say, if we could ask if you appoint a spokesperson. But I'm sorry, let's see, are you on this list here? Or I'm sorry, what Johnson, I got Johnson. What was the, Matt Johnson? Okay, got you here. Do we need the mic? He has the microphone, good.
To the school board, I have a statement and then a question. My statement is that it feels like the HCA is a very willing partner. They have in the past and present donated use of land for the use of the land in a nearly free capacity. It's clear that this is not the land that the board wants, but it's not meant to be rude, but beggars can't be choosers. My question is, if the offered property accomplishes the board's goals minus, call it 10 parking spots, what is stopping you from accepting the offer? That's my question.
So we really can't interact with you as a part of this, but definitely appreciate the comment and the question.
And any others?
Any others? Do we have any additional public comment?
I have a letter that I was handed today to the, it was sent, copied to me, the HCA, from my neighbor. This is from Karen Ann Schrammick, on McCormick. She said, "Dear Ms. Brian Toy, I'm very sorry to miss this important meeting tonight due to a previous commitment. However, I would like to go on record that I'm strongly in favor of keeping the Hollywood Community House building and not selling it now or any time in the future. The building is a historical landmark and a vital component of our community. I want to maintain and preserve it for the welfare of the Hollywood community. My dues help keep the Hollywood Community House open and allow the HCA to support the children and staff of Hollywood Elementary, the Hollywood Elementary PTA, the Boy and Girl Scouts, and other important neighborhood groups, such as Riverside, Brookfield, Young Life. For the past 48 years, I've been a homeowner and taxpayer in Hollywood. Although I did not have children attending Hollywood Elementary School or any other school in Riverside District 96, I know the value of good schools and strong property values, and I was always happy to support these schools by paying rising real estate taxes by contributing to school fundraising events. The Hollywood Community House should never be sold or torn down. If the Hollywood Elementary School needs to expand for increased class size, the school board should consider the possible solution of building up and adding a second story to the existing school building. As a member of the Hollywood Citizens Association, I feel that the recent HCA proposal is a fair and very fair and generous offer, and I encourage you to accept it. Thank you sincerely, Darren and Sharon.
Okay. Thank you for that. Any additional public comment? No? Going once, going twice.
Yes, this would be the final opportunity to give public comment.
Okay.
Okay.
My name's Michael Case. I'm a graduate of Hollywood School. Let's go there. My concern with this this conversation is the first board meeting that I went to, there was discussion of tearing down the community house. That did come out of the discussion. And now tonight I heard the superintendent saying that it's off the record or off the board or off the planning. What changed from the July 16th until now?
So again, during public comment, we don't interact,
Okay.
so yeah.
And the other one, if I may, I'm a little bothered by the fact that you don't trust us that in 30 years we're going to screw you. That is, put it in blunt terms, that's a little rude. That somebody would believe that this house, this community house who has supported this community for 100 years has done nothing but been gracious and sympathetic to the needs of Hollywood School to even suggest, it's an insult to me, that we would try to do something to hurt you in 30 years when we're actually hurting ourselves in the process. I think that's a very rude comment to make, whoever thought of that.
I'm Joe Stisco. I was here in third grade in 1940, and through the years, when the community, thank you, when the community house was built by Mrs. Coonley for the kindergarten to help Hollywood School, but the Hollywood Citizens Associations for 127 years have met in the top, the upper part of the train station, the second floor of the store at Hollywood and Brookfield on the east side, and at the community house. And I've known men who have been involved from 1940 on, and the men that are on the board today are just like the men who have been there all that I've known. They've done everything they can for the citizens of the community of Hollywood, and I believe the Hollywood Community House should remain. I joined the Presbyterian Church May 11th, 1951. I joined in this, we met in the church in this room, and my daughter was baptized here. I I've been with Hollywood for 80 years, and I want the community house to stay.
Let's see if I can get this out right. We moved into Hollywood in 1947. I graduated also from Hollywood School in RB. We had our 50th reunion a few years back, 8 or 9 years ago. And the day after our RB reunion, which we held at the Brookfield Zoo because most of us worked there or snuck into there or did something there. As we got older, we looked for boys there. The day after our RB reunion, we had a reunion for Hollywood kids only at the community house. We had approximately 25 classmates that came in. One classmate couldn't make it, led student. He called and he said, I would miss the RB reunion any day. Hollywood, never. You have a very special place here. And what I want to see, Mr. Kedmar, is a welcome to Hollywood sign. Yeah. Put that up. I love Hollywood. I went away for 30 years, came back to sell my grandmother's house. My folks lived on Woodside, she lived on Arden. And I said, I'm home again. And this is where I'm going to stay. You've got a very wonderful community. Tell your kids they live in Hollywood, not Brookfield.
Hollywood too. Yes. We had a legal battle with them about 20 years ago, and Channel 7 came out, and next to my house, their logo's in the cement. So, and McCormick and Rockefeller are named after all you know who. And I really think our village kit would let 20 parking spots parked around the school, don't you? With a little sticker that what comes to my mind right away is in Western Springs, there's a much larger school, McClure, right on Wolf Road. They too are landlocked. The teachers are very dedicated. They're out in front of my daughter's house, I know, at 6:30 in the morning, and they're parked up and down within 2 blocks. So this business, like that nice lady, I don't know her name, wait, it was you. I'm all for the walking. My God, if the teachers can't walk 2 blocks, well then they shouldn't really be teaching our children.
But I want to just address what your concern was.
I'm sorry.
Hollywood, California. Trademark Hollywood. They never made the trademark, and I found this. My wife did actually on a picnic bench in southern Missouri, 96 degrees as we were driving, but we stopped for a sale. There was axle grease in it, and there is a Hollywood in northern Arkansas and in Memphis. But
Hollywood, Florida.
yeah, well, Hollywood, Florida was where Rich and
Well, we are the original.
Tarzanowski did go, and that's where it was.
Let's try to. I'm sorry. Yeah, okay. I'm sorry. Can we keep that to our section here? Also, can you please say your name before you start? Thanks.
Hi, I'm Kristen Anderson. I was at a school with my children, 15 years in the Hollywood community. It wasn't meant to be rude, what we were saying before about a potential weakness as a 30-year lease. We were just saying that, I would probably be dead in 30 years, so it won't be but we're saying 30 years, we don't know if, who is going to have it. It's simply an unknown. And that is a potential weakness. But we did also talk about how we didn't think that, this is a tight community. We know how special Hollywood is. And that's one of the reasons that I came here tonight too, is because I also heard, whether it was a rumor or real, that Hollywood the house being torn down was one of the desires by the school district. And I came here to say absolutely not. And that's something that it's a part of our community that needs to always be here. Okay. So it wasn't meant to be rude, it was just meant to be like, hey, we're trying to do our homework. over here and all this and that.
Well, thank you, that's great.
Yeah, so-
And if you're not around 30 years, I'm not around 30 years.
The average age is 85.
Please hang in there.
30 years is a long time, it doesn't seem like it on paper, but $1 a year. And the agreement that the HCA put together does stipulate that it would be market value, whatever that might be, and that at the time when there was disagreement about market, that there would be an arbitration. So I think that that is fair. If, you know, the details of that can be worked out a little more, that would be great.
Thank you very much.
Okay. I'm sorry? Oh.
One more public comment.
Glenn Pleka, a 65-year resident of Hollywood, alumni of Hollywood School, plus Hauser Junior High School. And I have attended a couple of the last board meetings once I heard that they wanted to tear down the community house, which really upset me. But I would like to thank the superintendent and the entire school board for holding this forum to keep communication open. And I hope you can keep communication open with the high school, the zoo, the village, and everyone in the community. It's a very good thing that you're doing to try to get new ideas. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jerry. I've also been around here for about 55 years. Came in from Chicago, the South Side. All we kept hearing about was the school, and I wanted to know about the house I was buying. But then I settled down and said, okay, I got 3 kids at the time that would be coming here. When we moved in, my oldest daughter went into 1st grade, and my oldest son, went into kindergarten. And then a couple years later, my fourth went in a few years after that. But anyway, we had some board members about 30 years ago, maybe 40 years ago, I forget what, that wanted to do remodeling on the Hollywood School because they were doing remodeling on Ames and Blight. And we told them, the PTA said, no, we don't need that. Oh yeah, we gotta have it, you gotta have it. So my question now that I'm sitting here thinking about all that's being said, why don't you tear down the school and build a 2-story building? Why do you want to keep adding on to a building that fluctuates every 5, maybe 10 years with enrollment? The fluctuation was going on even when my kids were in school. And I got a feeling that it will be going on until none of us are here. And 30 years, I'll be over 100. No way in hell. Anyway, so why can't you do that? Why can't you decide to build a new school, period? Get what you want. Put it on the 2nd floor, because I also heard recently that you can't put a 2nd floor on this building because the 1st floor isn't strong enough, the structure is not strong enough to hold a 2nd floor. So instead of trying to take over all of this corner area here, that 100-year-old building that should be here for another 100 years, why not look into tearing this all down and build a 2-story building and let it fluctuate? That way you'll get your lunchroom, you'll get your art room, your music room, you'll get your kindergarten room, and any other classes you want to put in there. Because there was a time when Hollywood School, some of the grades had 2 classes. They had the 2nd and 3rd, or the 1st and 2nd and 3rd and 4th, because of the enrollment wasn't high enough. So everything in this Hollywood School fluctuates quite a bit. From year to year, you just don't know who is going to be around and who's going to fill in. A lot of you young people, I don't know how many kids you have, but unless you're coming in with 3 or 4 kids, the school is going to fluctuate. I don't care what any school board has to say about it. The only thing is, and I'm sorry to say, that every school board that has been elected has different ideas about what they want from this school in this particular area. Blythe and Ames, I don't know anything about them, so I can't say anything about them at all, other than put up a new damn building. Get your 2 floors in here. You're going to raise our taxes anyway, so why not do it for a good purpose? So the kids might have to go to another school for a while, and you'll get what you want, instead of just monkeying around every 10, 15, 20 years, oh, the school needs this and the school needs that. Well, think about the future, the real future, if more kids come into this area. So I don't know what you want to do, but I'll tell you right now, don't raise my taxes.
Okay, is there any additional public comment? I'm sorry, we have someone over here.
Hi, my name is Sue Gersh. I grew up here, went to Hollywood, house here, great. My husband and I raised kids here at RB now. My only comment is, my big concern is the safety of the children. Separating park and play, absolutely. Also, the current state of the playground that's there now is god awful. It was terrible when my kids were here, and that was 5 years ago. I was the PTA president at the time, and it all started with a discussion like, maybe we should start raising money to get some new playground equipment before a child gets seriously hurt. Not just a broken arm or a broken finger, which happens every year. Every year. In this interim, while we're trying to figure out big picture, let's do something about that awful equipment, because that is my main concern. Because I don't want any of us to be looking backwards going, oh my God, why didn't we do something sooner?
Okay, anyone else? Anyone else? Going once, going twice? Okay. Do we have one more? I'm sorry.
I have just a message to you. I gave you my whole 5 minutes. I got one thing to say. Sorry. I don't want to do say. I do think it's unfortunate that the entire board and all of us here found out just tonight that that area of the zoo is not potentially part of this solution that we're all working towards. And I think that communication between the Brookfield Village and the board needs to be better.
One comment to that, this came up last fall, our manager is reiterating that to the superintendent. I can't say anything more other than that.
Communication still needs to do that.
Okay. Any other comment? Grabbing the gavel, making it official. Okay. Future board meetings, November 6th is the Committee of the Whole. That's 7 p.m. at Hollywood Elementary School here. November 20th, a regular business meeting at Hauser. December 2nd is a special meeting in the Hauser Learning Resource Center. December 4th is Committee of the Whole at Ames Elementary School. December 18th is regular business meeting at Hauser. And if there is nothing else, the meeting is adjourned.